The following is a presentation of the Ncredible and Black Hollywood Live Networks. The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood Redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, Breaking Into. Featuring in-depth interviews with today's most influential entertainment figures, highlighting their tips, tricks, and techniques on breaking into the entertainment industry.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, Breaking Into.
Hey everyone, you're watching Breaking Into. I'm Derrial, Christon, and here joining me is Jessica King.
Hello.
Our very special guest today, he is an entertainment lawyer who represents top actors, filmmakers, and WWE stars. Robert Galarza is with us today. How you doing, Robert?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing? Thank you for having me.
We are great. Thank you for coming in on this Friday.
Yeah, no worries.
Busy schedules.
Busy schedules. You know, it's a crazy Friday as always. You know,
It is.
It's always funny. It's always one of those where you're like, half an hour from this point over here, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's Friday. That's 45 minutes.
Nothing's over half
hour
an
and a half.
hour in LA.
Yeah, right. and then they've gotten in this new mode of like deciding to shut down freeways. Just like we're gonna shut down like every freeway headed west. Or
They do
south
randomly, like in the middle of the afternoon.
I think there's some like master puppeteer that overlooks the city and just laughs when things happen.
I know,
I think
right?
so.
Look at
There's
all
a
you.
mastermind plan.
Fooled ya.
Exactly. You thought you were going to get home.
Well, once again, thank you for joining us. We
Absolutely.
definitely are really entertained and loving your career and what you've been doing. You are, you're a mogul. You are the man. You are like the big guy in entertainment law.
Hollywood bigwig.
Hollywood bigwig.
I'm hustling, man. I'm hustling. It's a crazy. How I even got here is a crazy road, And I think that when people talk about exactly how you get to where, how did you get to position B from A, and it's never a straight line. It's always like, well, I went through M and P and Q and Z and X and W and then somehow ended up at B, between A and B. Like that's kind of
jungle gym.
how
The
it
jungle
goes.
gym.
Yeah, and I'm been fortunate and blessed enough to be, or cursed enough to be around, pretty much around this industry my whole life.
Yeah.
So it's and not obviously not within the industry, but I've family's been in the industry since I was a little kid, and it gives you good perspective on how it works. And then of course, man, I always tell people, I said life is about, people tell you jump off the cliff and your wings will appear, and I'm like, yeah, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And you hit the
And
ground
then you fall.
Yeah,
And then
you
you
hit the
fall.
ground and you get up and you dust yourself off and you climb back up the cliff and you do it again, and the key is to focus on doing it the right way, doing it with integrity. Honesty and integrity and honor are things that I think people take for granted in business, especially in our business. And so when people ask like, how did you get these opportunities? It's like, well, I stayed true to my roots, which was always to be an honest person, right?
Yeah.
And look, along the way to success, you're gonna piss some people off. Like it's just gonna happen. You're gonna make enemies. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But the purpose is to understand that that you try not to make enemies. Your collateral damage exists as a part of the process. But as long as you can try to stay true and stay that course to the best of your abilities, and try to set expectations appropriately, you end up usually in a better position than a worse one, quite honestly. So.
Well, a lot of people dream of your career and just being in entertainment. Like from a young age, did you always know that was going to be kind of the start of the business for you, that you were going to end up in entertainment?
Yes and no. The entertainment industry, as you guys know, as most people in the business know, it's like that weird. It's like kind of like the mafia, right? It's kind of like
It is.
You get in and you try to leave, and they pull you back in, and then you try to leave, and they pull you back in, because it's a very challenging industry, and along the way you're getting your teeth kicked in a lot, and I certainly took my series of lumps along the way, and then more traditional life ends up trying to pull you back. So. And I grew up out here in Southern California when I was a kid, and then my dad flew for American Airlines, which is based in Texas. So we got pulled back to Texas, and I moved into Austin, Texas, which of course is luckily an entertainment hub.
It is.
In its
Music
own.
City.
Yeah, Music City.
Yeah.
In its own, and so my roots are Austin based. And so, but it's enough of still a stable city that does other businesses that
Right.
you're always kind of like, well, maybe it'd be easier if you did advertising or did sports media or did something else. And so I kept kind of diving off in various capacities, and my road was really interesting. I mean, I grew up. My cousin, my first cousin, I'm half Spanish, half Irish. So my mother's side, all Irish. So my cousin's an actor named Thomas Wilson Brown. He was cast in Silverado as Augie, who was a little boy in Silverado.
Yeah.
And then he was the Russ Thompson in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
pretty much, if
I think I just saw that movie a couple weeks back.
Yeah. So if you're a woman between the ages of 28 and like 45, you were probably in love with my cousin for a period of time. And he's still one of my clients, and still acting, phenomenally talented guy. And he's had his fair share of life setbacks. It's like part of it is people talk about like industry setbacks, but then other stuff happens in life too that just makes life hard to just keep towing the road of being able to just keep doing auditions and keep going through the process. And so but I've been around this business for a long time, and in a background, it's like what do you do when your cousin's a movie star and you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you become an actor. So I was trained in acting for pretty much most of my young life, and both in front of the camera and on stage. And then I came out here in my early 20s after I graduated from college, and kind of got in front of the camera a little bit. For me, I'm not saying I'm a control freak, but I like being able to have some sense of direction of where my life's going. And it's I feel for my clients, man, it's a vulnerable position when your entire livelihood is built upon trying
other people.
And I try to tell people, I was like, look, casting directors, they want you to be the answer. Trust me, like they just trying to check the name off the box, and they want you to be the right one. But it's hard. I mean, I've written films and I've produced films, and when you're producing or you're writing or working with directors, like you always have an image in your mind of that character, right? So when they walk in and there's oftentimes they'll walk in and, oh, it's them, and you see them and you're like, yeah, and they perform and you're like, it's not them anymore. Or vice versa. You'll be like, it's not this person's not right, and then you'll see them perform and they'll transform into that character. You're like, oh my God, I never saw it in that light, and that's exactly what we need. And that's why you got to keep persistent, because it's a numbers game, And so, but at the time, I just wasn't quite ready to toe that line. So I ended up behind the camera and got into independent film production, as PA, assistant PA, just kind of like running around, assistant production manager, when I first came out here. And this was like early 2000s. So I'm in my mid 30s, so it was like 2000, 2001, and
what, you told your real age?
Yeah, right.
In Hollywood?
I'm not an actor. So I'm I don't have to lie. I'm like, I
don't
can always.
Scars.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, I'm not in front of the camera, so I can say whatever I want. No, but it's funny. So back then, the independent market really wasn't substantive. So it's hard. You start to learn. You go through process of production. You're running around. Trying to quiet dogs at 3:00 in the morning. Bags of beef jerky, and you're trying to watch for airplanes and stuff in here in LA. And then those movies, you work and you scrimp and you go through the process, and then they never see the light of day. And it's better now. The market's changed, but back then it was tough. And so I realized, I was like, okay, if I want to do this, I need more skill set. I need more tools. And then I actually went back to Texas because I got married, and that ended too. I mean, everybody goes through these chapters and lines. And so I went back to Texas for a while, worked in the advertising industry and the sports industry and kind of across the board. And then, really for me, it was like, I wanted to go to law school, really not to become a lawyer, right? It was not to not become a lawyer. It was just my process of learning was, I'm going to go in with my mind to be able to take in and learn about the world. I felt like lawyers were given tools that allowed them to handle the world as a whole easier, right? It's like you learn the secret code of the rules.
Yeah.
And I took that kind of philosophy into it, and I was fortunate enough. That's a crazy world, by the way. I mean, I come from an artistic background. My mother was a ballet producer, and so I grew up kind of around the stage and around artists. And my dad was a pilot, which is a very alternative life as well. And my parents were always
two
split
extremes.
up. Yeah, and my parents were always split up. So I
Yeah.
lived half the year with my mom, half the year with my dad. I had just crazy childhood, and so this whole competitive world of law was very, very unique. And then it's a weird thing. You walk in and there's, you meet 300 people or 350 people or something more, and you're like, I'm competing against every single one of you for the next 3 years. And it's weird. And then you see 20% of them just fail away the first year, and then you just see attrition start to take hold. And it's a real pressure cooker that first year, but it hardens you in a lot of ways. And I think was good for me coming back in the industry, kind of hardened. But when I came back, it was similar. It was like I wanted to produce and I wanted to do some other things, and you know, and I once I made those accomplish those things, I was like, I really like being able to represent people. I like being there to use my skills to help people. You know, it's like, I think it was Will Smith that said, it's like, if you're not making someone's life better in this life, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
And it's so true, man. I mean, it's like if every day you're not taking steps that not only you're improving your life, but the life of others. And that's where, you know, I think a lot of people, when you ask what the secret is to breaking into business and succeeding in this business, you have to understand it's a collaborative business. You have to understand that you're working with and for the people with you, you know, so as opposed to I'm working for myself, you know.
And then, like, at the start of you kind of changing cycles of going from advertising business to law, what was kind of that defining moment where you were like, you know what, this is the element that I need to venture off into on the side of my career?
It was kind of crazy, actually. I was two stories. I was in law school, and what happens when you go to law school too is it becomes hyper competitive in that world, and nobody else is wanting to do entertainment law, by the way. I mean, because it's a crazy business to get into. It's not nearly as lucrative as, like, you know, your corporate laws, or, you know, some of these guys are making like $500,000 a year and stuff.
So that's a misconception, because a lot of people think that
that
entertainment law, you
Hollywood,
get
yeah.
Hollywood, you get the big budgets,
Right.
big dollars.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know.
No. I mean, trust me. If you do well, you can do well. But let's be quite frank here. I mean, the heavy firms make their money because they have a collection of really hundreds to thousands of clients. You know, and maybe some of those are heavy clients you're making a lot of money off of, but you know, when you're making a contingency percentage, or when you're doing production work on production counsel, you can't charge, you know, you're not charging $1,000 an hour like you're charging a corporation. And so these partnerships, you know, I worked for some firms that did, you know, commercial litigation when I was in law school, and those guys, they charge like, you know, they're charging like $1,000 an hour, $1,500 an hour.
Wow.
I mean, they're making literally like and these companies are paying it because they need these guys' skills to defend claims that are sometimes, you know, substantively larger. Or, you know, I worked for a firm that they won a lawsuit against Walmart for, I think they were plaintiff counsel, and they won. It took them like 5 years to do it, but $647 million. Wow. And then they paid it.
It's a lot
too.
of cash.
Like, yeah, Walmart's like, okay, well, here you go, here's a check, and it was crazy. So this was definitely not the route that other people were taking. So what I found was, you end up kind of going in the same traditional route, like you kind of take the same gigs and stuff. And then two things happened. One, I was working for a shop. I was very fortunate. I did really well in law school, and so I got a lot of opportunities for paid gigs, or paid positions as a law clerk, and working in various firms in Austin. And I was working at this firm, and I met this attorney, and I was working for him, and really nice guy, super hardworking, but he was super stressed out. He looked like he was 50 years old. He was bald, overweight, and the whole thing, and you just saw him, just the stress and strain on his body and his eyes. And he was 2 years older than I was.
Wow.
And it was that realization. I was like,
don't
I'm
want to
out.
be him.
Yeah, like, maybe that's not the career for me.
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, I don't want to do that. And I knew where my heart always was. As much as you fight it, you know, when you have a love for this business, it's going to pull you back in. And then my cousin called me, and he's like, hey, you know, I want to do something with you. And so we started doing some we started putting some stuff together, and that's when I got back into production, and I started getting into executive production and financing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and I was still in law school when this was happening, but I had a business acumen that was substantively larger. So then you cut your teeth in financing, and on the financing side of film, especially independent film, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot about people. You learn a lot about the realities of this business, and these are truths that not a lot of people want to hear.
Right.
And that's where I exist now, in that space. I can work in a space where I can cut through a lot of stuff faster. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's like it's hard because filmmakers, they never want to hear this. They never want to hear that, you know, you got to think about how you're going to sell the film first. Yeah. They always think, you know, I sat down. I was waiting out traffic the other day, and I was stopped to have a beer at a bar, and there was the guy, you know, the gentleman who was the bartender was, you know, it's Hollywood, right?
He's an actor, I'm assuming,
right.
or a
actor,
model.
director, or filmmaker.
Yeah.
So he started talking about, I can get $100,000 to make this movie, and I got access to cameras and this and that. And I'm like, okay, great. I said, but you're going to lose all that money. Like, the reality of raising $100,000, just because you have the equipment and can do it, doesn't mean you should do it. Now, but there's a better way. You can use that money to leverage yourself into getting better talent that can give you better opportunity, that can get you a project that's actually sellable. And now if you can understand the selling part of it and the marketing part of it before you ever go into production, now you're treating it more like a real company.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the tricky part about this business. A lot of people look. Hollywood is we're a land of dreams, right? We sell the dream to the rest of the world, as we should. But as my favorite metaphor is, I'm a metaphorical person. I love metaphors. My favorite metaphor is Hollywood's a lot like Hollywood Boulevard, right? So you drive down Hollywood Boulevard, and they put glitter in the streets, and the lights are all over the sides of the walls.
And everything looks pretty.
And everything looks pretty, and the tourists are taking pictures of it all. And at the same time, you have the homeless people, and it smells kind of like urine, and it's kind of like
The
so
contrast.
So those of us that lived here for a long time, we're like, it's
Hollywood Boulevard.
Right, exactly. And it's kind of the same way in this business, in that we sell it to the rest of the world. Is that this is where you come to get rich and get famous and everything else. But when you work in this world, you sort of realize it's a business like any other, and it's a great business. It's a business like any other, but it's not like any other, right? And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But at the same time, people have to take it with a level of respect, right? And I think when people come at it with a level of malaise or this lackadaisical attitude of I love the saying, I'm going to be found, I'm going to be discovered.
Yeah.
And I'm like, by who?
Yeah.
Because if I'm discovering you, I'm going to find a way to make money off of you.
Right.
So I'm not really discovering you, I'm exploiting you. So it's two ways to look at the coin. Instead, you should look at it as, yes, I want to be discovered for what merit I bring to this business, and I respect this business. And if I respect this business, then it will respect me back. But if I don't treat it with any level of respect, then I don't deserve any success.
Well, taking a step back to law school, because you went to law school 6 years after you finished undergrad.
Yep.
And you actually initially studied advertising, and you had a minor in business, and you worked in those industries for a while and then went back to school. So a lot of people, have a dream of something that might require additional schooling, but are sometimes a little too scared to kind of take that step back. What is your advice for people like that who do want to pursue something else, but are just don't have the courage to jump right in?
Yeah, totally. My advice is, well, first of all, you're going to two things will happen when you dive back. You've got to do everything you can to substantively support your own ego, and I mean that in a way where you don't. All of a sudden, everybody's much younger than you, and a lot of them are smarter than you, and still younger than you, and now you're competing in a world where you kind of feel like you may have missed a window, and so you feel like you got to play catch up. The thing is that look, at the end of the day, and at the beginning of every day, there's only two people that you have to answer to in this life. And it's the person who's staring at you in the mirror when you get up in the morning, and the person who's staring at the mirror when you go to bed at night, which is basically all just one person, which is you, right? So because of that, you have to decide if it's for you. You can't go about it in the way of this is the answer to my prayers, right? A lot of people are like, well, I'm going to change course because this is the answer to make my life better. And yes, it's your answer to make your life better in that you're going to gain value, you're going to gain knowledge, you're going to gain tools, but that in itself is not enough. It's like when people ask, how do you break in the entertainment industry? You're becoming an entertainment lawyer, right? How do you break in and be an entertainment lawyer? What makes you different than any other lawyer?
Yeah.
Not that I'm a better lawyer than everybody else. I'm a really good lawyer. Don't get me wrong. I have my skill sets that are really strong, but I hustle all the time.
It's part of the business.
I have two phones, and both of them are still buzzing right now. I mean, it's just the way it works. It's the money never sleeps, and this industry doesn't either.
Right.
You've got to have this drive that's beyond. So then for those people that are saying, okay, I'm going to go back, all right, go back hungrier with a greater sense of commitment. And if you do that, then what'll happen is, even though you're a little older and it's been a little bit longer and you've got other things when I was in law school, I was married too. And what happens with anything in life, your paths change, right? And that's such as life, c'est la vie. But when you go through that process, all of a sudden you got whole new responsibilities, and you got mortgages and car payments and all that stuff, and you're still going to law school against kids that are 23. They're like, my dad pays for everything, and I'm on a trust fund.
Yeah.
And what you do is you dedicate yourself to the work, and when you dedicate yourself to the work, all of a sudden you start doing this. Yeah. And then you really start doing that, and it's amazing how fast that happens. And trust me, for those that are looking to go back to whether it be law school, medical school, or graduate school, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it's not that much time in the grand scheme of your life,
Right.
Really. And the experiences you have in that chapter are so worth it anyways.
Priceless,
Yeah,
yeah.
memories, man. I got great memories along the way. I trust me. I'm working my tail off to make millions of dollars and all that. Have great success on that. But the reality is, like, my experiences, my memories are the most fun.
They're the most valuable.
Yeah, and my memories making both producing or even representing talent. I mean, you represent guys like Rampage Jackson, you represent guys like Chavo Guerrero. These guys, like, we make fun memories, and the reason we have such good relationships is, these guys are I care about my clients. They're not just clients to me. They're family. There's a closer bond. You start to develop these really personal relationships with these guys, and you've got to keep a sense of understanding of that there are ethical obligations and loyalties you have to create a line for, and their responsibilities as an attorney you have to maintain. It is your duty to maintain them, but at the same time you have to care about your people.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you were saying. All the business is about is relationships. You can't advance without a prominent relationship.
Exactly.
Now, I know also you started your own law office of Robert Galarza, and now for people who would like to maybe follow in those footsteps, what kind of advice or steps would you give to someone who is interested in that?
Yeah, that's tough. I had my own little kind of operation for a little while, and it was fine. I had a handful of clients, and I did it kind of as something that I did while I was still producing films as well. For the people that are wanting to do that, they go for it, right? Go for it, structure the right way, but before you dive into it, make sure you can handle all of the other administrative sides of business, especially in the legal field. I mean, one of the things that we have a necessity to maintain certain things in terms of both your ethical duties and your the various state bars, and I'm a Texas licensed attorney, so I work primarily, all the work that I do is I don't do any specific California laws. I don't do people come to me at California. No. I work, but I work in a capacity where my clients work with me, knowing that I have my Texas office and things I do out there. The thing is, because there's all these administrative things you have to take care of, you have to tend to get your house in order before you take that leap. I'm lucky enough now to be basically working in conjunction with a California shop that's able to handle anything California specific for our people, and I'm able to do the things I need to do. But it's tough unless you can dedicate yourself to be able to handle the other administrative things and marketing and website development and being able to respond to the email inquiries and your billing and all the administrative processing and stuff like that. In the beginning, it's really hard. Usually, I would say try to go into it with a couple people. If you're totally on your own solo, understand business before you really go into it. Get the financing you need. When you go in and get your loan,
that's important.
Don't ever sell yourself short. It's like any other business. Like, so many people are like, oh, maybe I can do it for like $30,000. I'm like, well, yeah, but just get $50,000 and get it done right. Or just get $100,000 to make sure you can pay your rent and because you're gonna struggle for a long time to be able to get clients at any level, at any capacity, and sometimes it's somewhat luck.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's luck, but look, I have a massive Rolodex in this business, and and a large portion of that Rolodex is people that I have great relationships with, because it's not about who I know, it's do they know me, right?
That's what they say. It's who knows you versus who you know.
That's a good, yeah.
Will they take your
Great way to
call,
put it.
right? And do they look at your phone like many of us do? Oh God, this guy again, And do you get the click on the top of the iPhone, or do you get the slide?
The sliding, right?
Yeah, that's the key.
Because the click is easier.
The click is easier.
Isn't it? You're like, nope.
Now, what are the benefits that you would say of working for a firm versus starting your own firm or practice?
The benefits, the benefits of working for a shop is they've already perfected the business side of it, right? The non-legal side of it. Mm-hmm. If you're just coming out of law school, there's no other way to go. You're not. It took me years before I was able to take that step, because I'd done it enough, and because I worked for a firm for a couple of years, and I had done that road too. You can't just dive out on your own. You can. I'm not saying you can't. Anything can happen. Anything can happen, but it's really hard because you're just so green to how the business really works, right? So it's not just a matter of like you may know the law or know maybe the law works. In the entertainment industry, look, in the entertainment industry, we don't do any sort of there's two different kinds of law, right? There's transactional law, and then there's litigation, and there's an entire entire school of people who are entertainment litigators, right? Mm-hmm. And they're really good at what they do. I do no litigation. I do not step anywhere near a courtroom, and I never will. I'm a transactional attorney. So
Okay.
all I do is it's all negotiation of contracts, and in a lot of ways it's almost like being a negotiator, right? A professional negotiator, rather than even an attorney per se.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be one to do the other, but I mean, you have to be an attorney to become a professional negotiator. But that's pretty much what I do. Is I'm there to facilitate getting deals done, and helping get deals done. There's two different kinds of lawyers in this world, in this industry specifically, even on transactional. There are those that I call deal makers, and those are called deal killers, right? And there's two ways to go about your business. The thing is that we have a duty to what they call zealously advocate for the positions of our clients, right? It's our responsibility to make sure we're watching every T and every I for our clients' needs, and that is a duty I take incredibly seriously. But at the same time, killing a deal in this business doesn't do your client any good at any level. You're killing the income that's coming in, and B, you're killing the potential exposure your client's going to get in a positive way. So if it's a good project, I always look at it this way: if I can get my client into a project, or I can help facilitate getting a deal done, where that particular client is getting good exposure, where they're showcasing, it's increasing the brand value that's been created and set by the team, and by the management team, agency team, and like all the players that are at the table. And on top of that, it's not hurting the brand in any way, and it's not overcommitting them in terms of their schedule, then it's almost just a pure win, right? And no matter what the money is. Now, that being said, our job is to increase value for our clients, right? And then our clients' value increases, and we're able to negotiate better because, let's face it, they're always going to lowball us. It's Hollywood. This is what we do, right?
It just is what happens.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, you fight for things. So when you're first coming to law school, you don't understand quite those rules yet. So going back to your question, is it better to go for a firm or for on your own? It depends. If you're going into a shop that's just putting you behind a desk and making you bill hours and making you make money for the firm, which, hey, look, it's a business, right? They got to make money, they got to pay for all the overhead and other things. If that's the path they're putting you on, and you're not being tutored along the way by a senior attorney who's really taking you under his wing, like, and showing you the games, showing you the rules of the game, and showing you, look, this is because this industry is unlike any other. If you're an entertainment attorney in this business, you have to be able to navigate waters that you don't normally navigate in any other business, because it's just not as black and white in this world as it is in other arenas, because so much of it is built upon, like we said, relationships. Yeah. And so you've got to be able to facilitate those relationships. And I've met some incredible seasoned. I mean, I have role models in this business, and I have people that I look up to, and I have people that are like, yeah, that guy is the kind of lawyer I want to attain to be. And a lot of those guys, they produce, they do law, they manage, and kind of what it's my background. It's like the same thing. You end up kind of facilitating multiple things, all within ethical bounds, obviously, all within the rules, but.
Well, you've talked a little bit about your producing side of things, and you've managed to successfully merge two very different businesses with entertainment law and film production. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced with doing both of those professions?
The biggest problem the hardest part with film production is, like anything else, I mean, your biggest issue is, in this business, is always money. No, but in truth, it's with film production, it's trying to get, it's trying to maintain that business sense along with being able to maintain a creative integrity, right? So create really good, valuable products that are also artistically doing good things for the world, right? And on the same turn, being able to make sure that you're staying obligated to your investors, right? So one of the biggest challenges you face you don't face a lot of challenges on the production side of being a business attorney, being an entertainment attorney and in producing. It actually makes your life easier to produce because you know the rules so much easier. Yeah. The harder part is being a producer and being an entertainment lawyer, because you know the rules and you know you can't break them, you can't do these wishy-washy deals. Or you can't
Right.
don't worry about the investor. You have to like not only are you legally obligated to, but now mentally your brain goes, this is going to turn into this, and you can see the trouble brewing on the horizon, and because that's what we're trained to do, right? You see it so much that you see so many of these cases, these scenarios where trouble ends up down the road, that you look down the road and you're like, oh God, this is going to end up there. And so now when you're producing, there's always I have a good friend of mine who's a movie producer who's been producing independent films for a long time, and he always says, look, everything is great if everyone's in on the joke. Right? Especially in the independent film world.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it's true. But the hard part is if you are the guy that knows that there's no punchline to the joke, and as an entertainment lawyer, like you can see where the trouble is going to end up, it makes you hard to be in on the joke. In terms of being able to do you get the deal done when ethically you can't, and you shouldn't. Like that's the hard part is you have to. You can't just you can no longer sit there and just say, well, I didn't know, I was naive. There's no plausible deniability when you're producing an independent film if you have an understanding of the kind of things that can go wrong. And look, but the truth of the matter is you shouldn't be producing if you're the kind of person that doesn't care about what your investors are going to get back.
You got to have a heart.
Yeah, and well, in the truth of the matter, you're going to have a short career.
Yeah.
I mean, so you want to have those people that are supporting you, keep supporting you.
And how do you go about picking the projects that you choose to either work on or represent talent from? How do you go about making that selection?
So there's a couple things when you're representing talent and reviewing projects. Now we don't review projects or go out and procure work like our agents do. But look, we're a part of the team, and like with a couple of my guys, there's kind of more of almost like a managerial role in a lot of ways too. That you take on, and because you're there to counsel, right? You're the needs of your client. And because I've produced and because I've seen thousands of scripts, really bad ones and really great ones, I'm asked to review projects sometimes too and give my opinion as a friend, right?
Right.
Not you should do this, don't do this. But so there's two things you look at: is this thing going to be able to hit the open market? Is it going to promote and push your brand the right way? And does it do all the things that a story should do? Right. Mm-hmm. Look, the truth of the matter is every film or every television show that has been successful in the history of this business, with the exception of a couple, has one significant key factor that it is fluid through all of them. And it is that the characters themselves are able to showcase human characteristics in such a way that it connects with the audience, right? You can connect on an emotional level with those people that you're seeing on screen. And that's what the art form is, right? If it's a comedy, you laugh with them or at them because there's some semblance of, in your own life, I've seen that or I've done that or I've thought that or my brain went that way. Or, oh my gosh, the great comedians are the guys that are observational comics, right? They point out the funniest things in life, right? And the truths, the hard truths about relationships, about work, about this business, about whatever, right? So, same with action films. It's this kind of like gritty, tough aspect of if I could, if somebody did me wrong, I'd want to be able to do that like that. If it's a drama, it's the pull on the emotional heartstrings and the most powerful films. Some of the most enough was like take the Godfather series. I mean, remember the first two, of the three. When I say series, I mean the two. You take those films and at the crux, they were not a gangster film.
Yeah.
They were a film about family, and it's that family connection is what made audiences really connect. So when I look at projects, I look at that first, and then next I look at the team. Is this a professional team that's going to get this film on screen for my client to be able to be represented, right? The worst thing is when somebody takes on a project and they work their tail off and they put their heart and soul into it, and it never sees the light of day, right? It's because now, you got a check for it, but it doesn't do anything good for your career progressively. I mean, to go back to my cousin, he had a deal with Disney. He had a multi-picture deal at one point, and this was back in the 80s too, when they did these kind of deals. We'll do a couple movies with you, and we'll lock you down.
Like the 5-picture deals.
5-picture deal and stuff. But back in the day, we'll do, and they never made the movies. I mean, then you get paid and you're fine. I mean, not like you're getting you're left out. But if you don't have stuff where you're real, if you don't have exposure on screen, you have to have both, right? So if you don't have a team that's competent enough to do that, Or worse than that, you have usually one party in that thinks that they can do it all themselves. Those are the worst people. Are the ones. It's not the ones that are the most dangerous people are the ones that are naive enough and egotistical enough to believe that they can do everything themselves. They're the worst. The ego and fear are the two biggest enemies in this business.
Right.
And ego is the one right there that just you go, wow, you know, those are I love the people that fight for credits. Like I'm always like, nobody pays attention that deeply except for in the industry. Like you really think the audience cares so much.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, get your movie made. If you got to throw an extra producer credit to Joe Blow to get the movie up on screen, I really don't think they're going to
Just
pay
do
much
it.
attention.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
Let's get it done. You know, it's always one of these like, get it done, put it up on screen, move on to the next one, and make another movie. And it's like with writers and producers, directors are like this too, where it's like, if you only have one project, if it's your baby, you know, first of all, if it's your baby, save it for 10 years into your career.
Yeah.
But if you only have one project and that's the one that you're holding on to so tightly, then you need to not be in this business because you're not really in this business. You're now an auteur, and that's great. But doing that doesn't allow you to substantively continue to do the things you need to do to get it done, which means sacrificing, as they say with writers, it's killing your babies, right?
Yeah.
Which is sorry for the term, but it's what they say for writers, right? And it's getting rid of those things that you put your heart and soul into as a writer. As a writer, a director, you have to be able to do that. So it's always maintaining that understanding. And if you don't have that attitude about the business, then you're going to have a hard time succeeding for the long term in this business.
Our time's cut a little bit short today, but where can fans find you on social media outlets if they want to ask you additional questions or just find out more what you're working on next? Where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter. My initials are RM, and my last name is Galarza, Galarza. I'm also, you can connect through me through a couple of my guys, Mex Warrior, and then Rampage Jackson as well, and go from there.
Cool. Well, thank
Very
you
cool.
for tuning into Breaking Into. I'm Derrial Christon, along with Jessica King. Jessica, where can your fans find you?
Find me on Twitter at I am Jessica King.
And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Derrial Christon. And we will see you next time. Thank you.
From producers Maria Menounos, Derrial Christon, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in.
Hollywood
Redefined.
Redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.